Welcome to Slow Night Ancient Tales. Tonight, we journey back to early 20th century Korea with a classic short story titled Sacrifice, written by Hyun Jin-geon. It is a beautifully tragic tale of passionate love, strict traditions, and the quiet heartbreak of a young woman seen through the innocent eyes of her little brother. Leave the worries of your day behind. Allow the gentle rhythm of this ancient tale to quiet your mind. Now find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and let the story carry you away into a peaceful sleep. Sacrifice by Hyun Jin-geon 1. Mother took my sister and me to the end of Sajik Gol, where we formed a lonely household. Our father passed away in the autumn when I was 3 years old. Mother would often tell us, with tears in her eyes, about how father had served as a pastor, how his passionate eloquence moved sinful people to believe in God, and how he devoted his whole heart and strength to the church without looking after himself at all. My sister, who was 4 years older than I, would have tears welling up in her clear and beautiful eyes every time she heard these words. Knowing nothing, I shed tears simply because it was sad to see mother and my sister crying. Though our household was not wealthy, it was a small family, so we could avoid hunger and cold with the harvest of a few bags of rice from the fields father had prepared during his lifetime. Whether it was due to father's influence or not, mother sent both of us to school. Since it was already more than 10 years ago, there was much criticism regarding educating my sister. However, though mother might not have known exactly why women's education was necessary, she seemed to believe that it was a good thing to educate women as well. It was the spring of the year when my sister, a flower-like maiden of 18, was promoted to the 4th grade of the school's girls' section with top honors, and I was promoted to the 2nd grade of the same school. The cold that used to make my hands red and my face pale had long since vanished. The sunlight was warm, and the tip of the wind was gentle. New shoots sprouted on the lawn, and the forsythias and azaleas had already embroidered the mountains and fields in red and yellow. Before I knew it, the golden oriole sought its mate where the willows intertwined, and the skylark soared high into the hazy, shimmering sky. The monthly rose planted in front of our courtyard also bloomed in full profusion, as if to say, I too have received the beautiful light of the Lord of Spring. One day, when the vivid morning sunlight scattered a brilliant golden color onto the faintly dozing mist, my sister stood gazing at the monthly rose as if entranced, her hair fluttering in the gently breathing spring breeze. As the piercing sun rays struck her eyes, she tilted her head, placed one hand on her forehead, and slowly closed her eyes. Then she hid herself in the shadow of the monthly rose, which was still dimly dozing, and the dew-drenched flower petals brushed against her cheek. She gently touched the petals with her hand, bowed her head, and looked down into the flower. I too watched my sister and the monthly rose for a long while before wondering if it was time to go to school. Looking at the clock hanging in the room, sure enough, time was already running out. I hurried into the opposite room, wrapped my book bundle, and came out saying, Sister, let's go to school quickly. It's already time. Oh, already? Surprised by my words, my sister turned around, hurried into the opposite room, wrapped her book bundle, and then sat there blankly. Let's go quickly, I cried out impatiently. My sister was startled once more and stood up. Lately, my sister's behavior had been very strange. She would stop in the middle of her studies, which she used to do so diligently, and sit blankly, staring vacantly at the distant mountains. Since my sister slept in the main room with mother but studied with me in the opposite room, I saw her sitting lost in thought many times. That night, waking up around 1 in the morning, I suddenly needed to use the outhouse. I quickly got up and went to the latrine. Coming out after relieving myself, I saw the already waning, dim half-moon hanging in the middle of the sky. Looking up at the moon, I stepped out into the middle of the courtyard, one step at a time. The monthly rose in front of the courtyard was faintly reflected in the dim moonlight, and something whitish could be seen between the flowers. Looking closely, it was my sister, standing with her head buried in the flowers. Her white calico double jacket caught my eye. Why was she standing there like that? In the middle of this night, when the whole world was quietly asleep, wrapped in the joy of warm spring, for what reason did she come out and stand there? My young heart pounding, I asked, "Sister, what are you doing there?" As if startled by my voice, her body flinched, but there was no answer. I quietly went closer and lightly shook her shoulder. She seemed to be breathing rapidly as her back was heaving. She seemed to be holding back her tears as a faint, trembling sob could be heard. I stepped closer and looked at her face. Her face, visible between her powder-white hands, was flushed. Wondering what was the matter, I strenuously pulled away her two hands covering her face. Her hands were wet. Tears were streaming from her eyes. Pearl-like tears dropped one by one onto the monthly rose. The monthly rose, harboring those tears, seemed to be weeping dimly in the moonlight, which looked as if it were veiled in thin silk. My sister's head was as hot as fire. "Why did you come out instead of sleeping?" The hand with which she pushed mine away seemed to be trembling. In a choked voice, I said, "Sister, why are you crying?" "Huh?" And tears welled up in my own eyes as well. The dew-drenched flower fragrance gently withered the heart like a song of love, and the warm breeze passed softly over the cheeks like blood burning with romance. On such a night, how could a tender heart be without feeling? How could a flower like mine be without sorrow? Knowing nothing, I pulled her wrist and said, "Sister, let's go inside quickly." I felt her pulse beating erratically. Wiping her tears, she said, "You go in first. I will come in shortly." "What on earth is the matter? Are you unwell somewhere?" "No, my mind is just inexplicably restless." Then, grasping a thorn of the monthly rose with one hand and resting her forehead against her arm, she sobbed and wept. The dim moonlight flowed over the monthly rose tree as vaguely as the gaze of eyes weeping at a painful parting. 2 days later, on a public holiday, my sister and I went to see Changgyeongwon. Articles about the cherry blossoms in Changgyeongwon being in full bloom had been published in the newspaper since several days ago, and because the weather was clear, sightseers gathered like clouds, covering the vast royal garden in white. Indeed, the cherry blossoms were blooming as much as they could, making it look as if tens of thousands of pieces of red silk were spread out on both sides of the road, from the zoo to the botanical garden. "Gukju, let's skip the zoo and just sit on that lawn to look at the flowers to our heart's content." My sister looked at me, asking as if seeking my agreement. Thinking of the strange smell that came from being near the animals, I immediately agreed, saying, "Let's do that." We took our seats under a pine tree on a secluded side of the roadside lawn. The sightseers dressed in white passing under the bridge of flowers that looked like red sunset glow appeared reddish, reflected in the light of the blossoms, which aroused an unspeakable spring excitement. I too realized the warm and gentle joy of spring, and turned to my sister with a smiling face, only to find her sighing softly, bowing her head, and plucking a yellow flower blooming among the green grass to press it against her cheek. She frowned as if she had some worry. Drawing a mental picture of the scene where my sister had wept among the monthly roses that night, I closely observed her behavior. Feeling sorry that her face bore an expression of sorrow, I pondered deeply on what kind of story I could tell to arouse her interest, looking around here and there. Accidentally looking toward the botanical garden, I pointed there, shook my sister, and said, "Look over there." For some reason, my sister was startled. With an expression common to a person suddenly awakened from a deep sleep, she looked at the place I was pointing. There, a student wearing our school uniform was walking down this way. He was the monitor of the 4th grade at our school. My sister stared blankly for a while, and it seemed their eyes met. My sister bowed her head. I saw that the area beneath her ears had turned red. Clutching my knee tightly, she spoke in a voice barely audible. "What is over there that you tell me to look?" "Ouch! Oh!" "Why? Don't you know him? He is the one who entered the 4th grade in first place this time. They say he is excellent at his studies and possesses extraordinary talent. Besides, his face is so handsome like that." I praised him enthusiastically, as if it were my own accomplishment, my mouth never stopping. My sister smiled shyly and said, "Who says I don't know him? We've attended the same school for 4 years. Did you shake me and make such a fuss just to show me that person?" "Of course. By the way, yesterday I came out a bit earlier than you, right? When I got home, several of Mother's friends were there, and they were praising you like crazy. They said, "How can her looks be so beautiful and her talent so great? She has truly received many blessings." Hearing that, I was so happy I felt like dancing. That man is great, but you are even greater. I praised that man, but fearing that my sister might lose to him, I boosted my sister up for a long while. Blushing again, she said, "You say the strangest things. Who said they wanted to be praised by you?" While we were having this conversation, he already passed in front of us and glanced at my sister. Their eyes met once more. My sister's face suddenly took on a crimson hue. My sister gazed blankly as he blended into the crowd and grew distant. He disappeared. As my sister's gaze turned back this way, my eyes, which had been stealing a glance at her looking at the back of his head, were caught. "Why are you staring intently at someone's face?" And my sister's face turned red yet again. "Who is staring?" And I smiled brightly. The next morning, my sister applied a bit of powder, which she rarely did, took off her clean clothes, and changed into new ones. "What is the matter with you today?" Mother asked suspiciously. My sister hesitated, then hugged Mother's breast like a child and laughed. "Don't I look quite beautiful today?" With that laugh, a blush spread across her face. Indeed, today my sister looked even lovelier. Leaning half her body against the large room door, supporting herself weakly with both hands behind her back and smiling, she was indescribably beautiful. Her two cheeks, looking as if pink water had been mixed into milk, seemed plump, and her rose-colored lips parted gracefully, her white teeth flashing imperceptibly. Her eyebrows, looking as if drawn from spring mountains, seemed slightly arched upward, and beneath them, her clear, autumn water eyes rippled with fine waves of laughter. Mother looked at her and smiled. "When were you ever ugly? But what about today?" my sister asked back. "Yes, today you look even more beautiful." "Mother, really?" And my sister smiled again. A look of joy, wrapped in shyness, revealed itself. "Today you truly look more beautiful. If your father had seen you, how delighted he would have been." As she said this, tears slowly rolled into Mother's eyes. A cloud seemed to cast over my sister's brightly shining face as well. But before long, that cloud vanished, and the light of joy and hope flashed once more. Looking anxiously at her weeping mother, my sister said in a seemingly artificial sad tone, "Mother, do not be distressed. My child, it must be time. Don't worry about me. Hurry up and go to school." Mother swallowed her tears. We set out with our book bundles. As we crossed the school threshold, the bell rang. We ran inside. All the students had gathered. As soon as everyone finished lining up and numbering, "Attention! Salute! Total attendance 00 members." A crisp, ringing voice was heard. It was the voice of the fourth grade monitor. As soon as this voice ended, a similar command and report was heard from the girls' section. It was a sharp voice, like the crushing of jade. It was the voice of my sister. For some reason today, these two voices made my young heart pound. The following Saturday, after school, it was announced that the student association would meet. The fourth grade students locked the school gates and stood guard, preventing the innocent first and second graders from leaving. When we entered the auditorium where we always gathered, male students were already packed on this side, and female students on that side. As I sat there was a huge clamor about this and that for a while, and before long the fourth graders handed around slips of white paper, shouting, "Intellectual Department Manager ballot papers. Write one name per sheet." A fellow sitting next to me asked knowingly, "Is it a signed vote or an anonymous vote?" The fourth grader who had been shouting replied. From over there someone asked, "What is an anonymous vote?" "You don't even know that, yet you only try to go home whenever there is a meeting. An anonymous vote means you do not write the voter's name." The fourth grader spoke reproachfully, his demeanor solemn. Without thinking, I immediately wrote the name of the fourth grade monitor. In the end, he was elected with the highest votes from the boys' section, and my sister was elected with the highest votes from the girls' section. From then on, my sister would say she was attending the manager's meeting or the intellectual department manager's meeting, and after eating dinner, she would go out, frequently returning at 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Every time she went to the meeting, she would look into the mirror, which she never used to do, stroke up her loose hair, and adjust her dress ribbons. One night, my sister went out after dinner, saying she had an intellectual department manager's meeting, but she did not return even by 10:30. Mother, filled with all sorts of worries, said, "Your sister hasn't returned yet. The meeting must have ended by now. Go out and look for her." I put on my durumagi and left the house, walking ploddingly along the road leading from the end of Sajik Gol to Gwangwamuntong. It was a moonless night at the end of May. Walking along the dim road with few streetlights and rare pedestrians, an eerie feeling crept over me. To dispel the fearful thoughts, I stamped my feet loudly, counted 1, 2, and dashed forward. After running for a while, I was panting and drenched in sweat. Taking off my hat to fan myself, I walked slowly. Not far ahead of me, a young man and woman were coming up, walking as a pair toward this direction. It was a male student and a female student. It was him and my sister. My heart sank, and a kind of curiosity arose. I quietly hid behind the corner of someone's wall. Unaware that I was hidden there, the two passed by, whispering something in English. Among their words, this phrase was heard most clearly. I didn't know it then, but thinking about it now, it seems it was this phrase. He said, "Love is blind." To which my sister laughed under her breath and replied, "But our love has eyes!" Once they passed, I quietly followed behind them. Because of the darkness, my sister's white jacket was very noticeable. As we passed in front of the gate of a house with a lit street lamp, I saw his right hand tightly grasping my sister's left hand. I went on, smirking for some reason. Fearing that they might look back at me, I deadened my footsteps, rubbed against the walls of other people's houses, and stayed quite far behind. Nearing our house, the two stopped, and it seemed they shook hands and shook hands again. They seemed utterly loath to part from each other. They remained like that for quite a long time. Then he let go of her hand, whispered for another while, and turned around to leave. Standing in front of our house gate, my sister stood watching him leave for a long time. He passed by my side again. His footsteps were hurried. After he passed, I dashed back home. Stepping over the threshold of the gate, I heard the conversation between mother and my sister. "Why are you so late?" I was worried sick. "We had a lot of things to discuss today." My sister hesitated. "Where did that boy go? Why didn't he come back with you?" "Didn't you see him on the way?" Mother asked. "Where could he have gone? He should have met me on the road," my sister worried. Opening the door of the inner room, I put on a completely innocent face and said, "Sister, when did you get back?" and smiled brightly. Mother was surprised and said, "Why are your cheeks and clothes covered in dirt? What happened?" I came clinging to the walls. "No, it's nothing," I said, grinning at my sister. My sister's face turned red again. 5 after that, on warm moonlit nights, my sister would frequently go out, saying she was going somewhere with a friend. Since she always left me behind and went out alone, I do not know how many times she and he met in places where the green grass grew thick and the moonlight was quiet to share sweet whispers of love. Perhaps because her outings were frequent and her behavior suspicious, Mother said, "From now on, whenever you go out, make sure to take your brother with you." After that, whenever my sister came home, she would throw tantrums for no reason, and a sorrowful expression would wash over her lonely, beautiful face. And from time to time, she would complain of a headache and lie down with a blanket over her head. One day, after we finished lunch, my sister said to me, "Would you like to go for a stroll in Namsan Park with me?" At that time, it was the scorching heat of June, and the hot air felt as if it were steaming a person. Thinking that I could go there to breathe the cool air and wash my sweaty body in the green color dripping from the lush trees and plants, I immediately said yes. We took the tram from Gwangwamuntong, went through Jingogai, and climbed up Namsan Park. On the hill over there, he could be seen sitting and standing up as if tired of waiting. My sister suddenly turned around, looked at me, and said, "Take this, go to Jingogai and buy some cakes, okay?" And she gave me 20 John. I hurried out to Jingogai. After quickly buying the cakes, I returned to the spot, but there was no sign of him or my sister. Where did they go? My heart pounded as if my sister had gone to some dangerous place. No matter how much I looked here and there, they were not to be found. I peeked this way and peeked that way. After staring up at the summit of Namsan shrouded in green for a while, I walked on again. Even after walking for quite a long time, they were not visible. Oh dear, they must have just gone somewhere else. They probably didn't come this way, I muttered to myself, turning around to go back the way I came. Returning along the path I had taken, it felt terribly far. Goodness, I've walked quite a distance in the meantime, I grumbled internally. Because I was vexed, it felt even hotter. The atmosphere seemed to be boiling wildly under the sun's torch. Immersed in this air, my body felt as if it were being boiled. Sweat streamed down continuously, and my breath came in short, ragged gasps. When I took off my hat, steam rose thickly from my head. I returned to the place where I had stood earlier, suppressing the rising spite. Where could they have gone? Let's look over there, I grumbled to myself and walked in the opposite direction from before. After walking for a while, they were still nowhere to be seen. The irritation I had been suppressing exploded all at once. I plopped down on the grass and wept loudly. Plucking at the grass, I cried for a while, and then I felt ashamed and amused at how childish I was. Wiping away my brimming tears, I let out a chuckle. Ian began searching here and there once more. Over there, beneath the shade of a pine tree that was hardly noticeable to people's eyes, I saw the two of them sitting side by side. I was as joyful as if I had discovered a lost treasure. I was about to shout, "Sister, you're there!" and run over, but then I thought, let's see what they are talking about. And like the night I had followed them, I quietly walked closer. Since it was midday, there was not a single sightseer, and not a breath of wind blew. The hot air was as stagnant as congealed oil, without the slightest ripple. Because they spoke quietly for fear of being overheard, every single word reached my ears clearly. "Of course we must do that. But why is it that I haven't been able to see you lately?" he said. "Mother wouldn't let me go out. She said, whenever you go out, make sure to take your brother with you. That's why I came with him today." And my sister continued with a laugh. "I forgot while talking about other things. It must have been so tedious for you to wait." "I waited for over an hour. I thought you might not be able to come today either, and I was even thinking of just leaving." "What? Thinking of just leaving? When have I ever broken a promise? I was in such a hurry that when I was eating lunch, I didn't even know if the rice was going into my mouth or my nose." The two laughed. I laughed too. At last, with the footsteps a child takes when going to catch a butterfly perched on a flower, I approached them step by step. The lovers were so entranced by their sweet conversation that they didn't even notice someone approaching. I stood quietly right behind the pine tree where they sat. Their shoulders were touching, and my sister's loose hair brushed against his cheek. Their eyes and mouths were overflowing with smiles full of affection. Then, holding each other's hands, they stared blankly at one another like people who had lost their wits. I felt as though I too were enveloped in the warm and fragrant aura emanating from my sister's body. I rushed forward and cried, "Sister, you're here. I wondered where you went. Oh, you really made me anxious." The two were startled. Seeing my sister's Raimi jacket fluttering, I knew her heart was pounding. He tried to act nonchalant, but there was no way to hide the crimson flush that the element of shame spread across his face. "Oh dear, I wondered who it was. You really startled me," my sister said, caressing her pounding chest with one hand. Turning to him and pointing at me with her eyes, she said, "This is my brother. He is still immature. Please love him a lot." Then she looked at me and said, "Look at him and from now on call him brother." "Why should I call him brother?" I teased them. My sister's face turned bright red and she glared at me. "Why are you angry, sister? Then I will call him brother." And acting like a spoiled child, I said, "Brother, sister, please have some cakes," and offered the cakes I was holding. My sister smiled gracefully at me and said, "We don't want to eat, so you go over there by yourself and eat them. We'll call you when we leave." I, too, didn't want to play the intruder for long. Holding the cakes, I went and sat on the grass, eating them and muttering to myself, "There are 12 old men sitting inside my stomach, yet they only think of me as a child," and laughed. That long summer sun was already hanging over the western mountains. The green water and fragrant grass reflected in the setting sun looked as red as if they were on fire. I, too, had been terribly bored during this time. I used the grass as a bed to lie down, stretched, twisted my body, and sang songs without even knowing the melody. No matter how long I waited and waited, wondering when they would come or when they would call me, the shadows of the two did not even flicker. What on earth did they have so much to talk about? Perhaps the conversation between people who love each other is endless. Even though the words they had spoken already numbered in the tens of thousands, they must have felt that the sun went down too quickly before they could even say a few words. The red light that shone on the grass and trees beneath Namsan gradually receded, and the dusk began to gather dimly. Chased away, the sunlight kept creeping up toward the summit of Namsan, until it sat huddled only at the very top of the mountain. As the dark blue twilight enveloped the base of Namsan, even the sunlight shining on the summit vanished, and the red sunset in the sky over there blew through the white clouds, tinting them yellow. Unable to bear it any longer, I stood up and went to the spot. Startled by the darkness, they too stood up. I stopped my steps and stood hesitatingly like a person carved out of wood. My sister's worried, trembling voice rang in my ears. "Mr. K, if we only appreciate the immediate pleasure and just carry on like this, I feel our sweet happiness will turn into bitter pain in the end. We must each be exactly as we discussed earlier." "Of course, we must surely do so. But as I said earlier, my family is originally so stubborn." His voice trembled. My heart felt a sudden chill. What did they say? What were they trying to do? I regretted not being able to overhear it all. The two walked toward this way. My sister's eyes were slightly red. Traces of tears were visible on her beautiful cheeks. My heart sank once more, wondering what was the matter. 6. That night, even with my young mind, I had all sorts of thoughts and could not sleep soundly. Every time I dimly woke up, I could continuously hear the sound of mother and my sister talking about something in the main room. Waking up again around 1 in the morning, I heard the sound of sobbing from the main room. Mother's voice, mixed with weeping, was heard. "So that's why you've been losing weight lately and acting so strangely. Even if I were to permit it, what will become of your life if that family says no? It is resentful that you engaged yourself to that man behind the back of your only living mother. To think that I raised you like gold and jade without a father, only for such a thing to happen. Just because I have no husband, do you also look down on me?" Sobbing, my sister replied, "Mother, I have done wrong. I don't know what to say to you. Before we became close, it was too embarrassing to speak. And after we became close, I tried to tell you several times, but the words just wouldn't leave my mouth. Please understand. No matter if you are my mother, I was ashamed back then. Now that we have even promised ourselves to each other, my body and mind are on fire, and I can no longer care about shame. That is why I'm telling you so brazenly. Like you said, mother, there is no way he would forget me. There is no way he would abandon me. How could someone so affectionate do such a thing? Yesterday in the park, we made a solemn vow. We said that if we tell our parents and they grant their blessing, there could be nothing better, but if not, we would run far, far away. We said that even if we are hungry and our clothes are cold, even if we cannot see our parents or siblings, as long as the two of us are together, it will be happiness. We said we would sweetly endure all kinds of hardships and pain. It is truly so. I feel like I would go mad without him. If you do not permit it, mother, I do not think I can remain alive in this world." My sister spoke like water rushing forth when a levee holding back a flood collapses. It is often the case that a pure maiden hides the fire of love deep within her heart, trembling with fear lest others find out, and burning her heart alone. But once she begins to voice it to her close confidant, she unleashes a fierce conflagration. My heart throbbing, I crossed over to the inner room. My sister was weeping with her head buried in mother's lap, and mother was weeping with her forehead resting on my sister's back. I, too, stood there sorrowfully for a while before sitting beside mother. Shaking mother, I said in a choked voice, "Mother, do not cry." As soon as I finished these words, my heart stung, and I could not stop the flowing tears. Swallowing her tears, mother shook my sister and said, my child, stop now." My sister wept even more sorrowfully. "My child, it is shameful before others. Stop it. Very well, I will do as you wish. Bring him here once." Mother finally relented. Whence did the saying, "A woman is weak, But a mother is strong, arise, and with what thoughts? 2 days later, my sister brought him over. His gentle face and polite demeanor instantly won mother's affection. She said he was truly a match for her daughter. She felt that her beloved daughter's lifelong future could be entrusted to him. She dreamed of sweet dreams. She dreamed of joyful days to come. Moreover, she said his clear eyes and black eyebrows closely resembled her daughter's. Watching my sister and him speak in English, she smiled without even knowing the meaning. She dreamed of a delightful future household for her daughter and of a beloved grandchild. From then on, the lovers, who used to meet secretly after waiting for a long time while avoiding the eyes of others, were able to meet freely at our house, laughing and enjoying themselves. 7 One evening, he came to our house. At that time, Mother happened to be away, and only my sister and I were there. I rushed out and greeted him warmly. "Brother, welcome." My sister also welcomed him gladly, saying, "Why haven't you come lately?" "Why, when did I not come?" he said with a forced laugh. My sister slowly closed her eyes as if thinking about something, then said, "Today is the 10th of July, and the 7th was a holiday. You came on the holiday, and today is the first time since then, right?" "Yes, it's only been about 3 days." 3 days. To me, it felt like 3 years. Meeting once every 3 days? It's far. It's terribly far. Do you think 3 days is that close? And my sister looked at him as if searching for something. "It's admirable enough to come once every 3 days," he laughed again. "Admirable. Do you know how many times I look out the gate during those 3 days? I was worried sick, wondering if you were unwell or if you were scolded by your family." Her voice began to tremble, and tears gathered in her eyes. I worried so much that some huge trouble might have arisen regarding our matter, burning my heart away, and her tears brimmed over and flowed down. "No, it's not that. At any rate, I am blamelessly at fault," he said, frowning before breaking into a feigned smile. "Why do you cry at the slightest thing like a child? Aren't you ashamed before your brother?" Suddenly changing his accent strangely into Daegu dialect. "To tell you the truth, I wanted to come yesterday, and the day before yesterday too, but every time I tried to come, a friend visited, so I couldn't help it." My sister, who had been crying, broke into a smile. I laughed too. He was from Daegu. His parents still lived in Daegu. He was staying at the house of his 5th cousin once removed in Seoul. Although more than 5 or 6 years had passed since he came to Seoul, so he hardly used his dialect anymore. He occasionally spoke strangely to make us laugh. Wanted to come, wanted to go. Imitating him, I rolled around on the floor laughing. He put on a completely straight face and said, "Why do you laugh while people are talking? How very strange." My sister laughed so hard that her face turned red, and holding her stomach, she said in a shattered voice, "Stop it. Stop making us laugh." After we laughed and enjoyed ourselves like this for a while, my sister sent me on another errand. I cannot remember what kind of errand it was. Whenever he came, my sister always pushed me away, telling me to buy something or go somewhere. "Oh, sister, why do you always push me away?" Grumbling, I left the house. The half-moon hung obliquely in the blue sky. It was like a single small boat sailing lonely upon the vast, boundless ocean. Anxious to hear what they were talking about while I was away, I hurried back, but it still took over an hour. Already accustomed to eavesdropping, I stepped into the courtyard softly and looked carefully. The lovers had brought out a wooden bench beneath the moonlit monthly rose tree and were sitting side by side, whispering something. Without even breathing loudly, I strained my ears. "Then what should we do? Your mother won't come up to Seoul anytime soon. Why can't you write a letter to explain the situation?" My sister's anxious voice was heard. "Well, I've written letters several times, but I just can't bring myself to mail them. What if they arrange a marriage elsewhere while you delay day after day? Even if they arrange it, if I don't go, that's the end of it. Won't that be difficult?" But my cousin and his wife seemed to have noticed something. Yes, it seems so. So perhaps some word was sent to my home because my grandfather is said to be coming up to Seoul in a few days. "You mean you will tell him everything when he arrives?" "Well, but my grandfather is truly a fierce old man like a tiger. Stubborn, truly stubborn. I don't know what to do either. That's why I can't sleep well at night." He scratched his head, frowned and continued. Today, my father sent another letter saying that they are going to see a prospective bride at the house of Songji Kim in Ulsan this time, so I must behave properly. It's truly exasperating. He let out a sigh. If we don't explain the situation to your parents as soon as possible, we will be in big trouble, my sister said anxiously. No matter what kind of scolding I receive, I will declare that I cannot get married. Do not worry at all. He raised his head resolutely and spoke with determination. The bright moon drifted along as if to say, I know nothing of the anxious hearts of these two, scattering its clear light into the warm air. The monthly roses were even redder and more beautiful. They seemed to say, I have forgotten the sorrows and agonies of the dust-laden world. The next morning, my sister's face when she woke up was haggard. Seeing her hair completely disheveled, one could easily tell that she had been unable to fall asleep last night, adjusting her pillow several times. My sister had tasted the bitter and astringent taste of love for the first time. She finally realized that to pluck the hibiscus of happiness, thorns would prick her hand. 1 day passed, 2 days passed, and a week went by, but he, from whom my sister anxiously waited to receive good news today or glad tidings tomorrow, did not show his face at all. Even when I went to school, I couldn't see him, and my sister's mind was so disturbed from this time on that she couldn't go to school either. During this time, my sister was so consumed by anxiety that the beautiful color on both her cheeks faded away, and the areas around her eyes turned bluish and sunken. Her lips burned blackish, and her arms hung powerlessly. On the 7th day, unable to bear it any longer, my sister handed me a letter and said, Take this letter to his house. If he is there, deliver it, and if you don't see him, bring it back. Since I had followed him to his house once before, I knew the place in detail. Stepping inside the gate of that house, there was no servant in the servants' quarters, and the door to the guest room where he stayed was closed. From inside, the furious voice of an old man rang out, striking my ears. You rascal, claiming you can't get married because you are still a student? What a fine excuse. You insolent wretch. I hear you've met some female student and are running wild with madness. What do you mean by it's not true? A marriage arranged by your parents cannot be done because you are a student, but keeping a wench while being a student is perfectly fine? You wicked scoundrel. I intended to let you finish school as you wished before marrying you off, but since you are already unable to contain yourself at such a young age, getting a female student or whatever, leaving you alone will ruin your life and defile the family. That is why we hastened to arrange the betrothal and even sent the wedding gifts. So, what do you mean by saying now whether you will go or not? No matter how foolish a young fellow's judgment may be. That family is famous throughout the Ulsan region, wealthy and of excellent Yangban lineage. If we break off a marriage that is already settled, is that bride supposed to grow old as a living widow? Haven't you heard the saying that a single woman's grievance can bring frost in midsummer? Declaring you would rather die than go. Ha, you rascal! You deserve to be beaten to death. If you wish to sever ties with your grandparents, parents, and all your relatives, then go ahead and do as you please. Hearing these words, a chill ran down my spine. On the other hand, I felt furious. I was utterly incensed that my pure sister was being subjected to such insults. I wanted to rush right in to vent my anger, raising my small eyes and clenching my fist tightly. Ha, you rascal! You insolent wretch! Oh, how infuriating! Bring me my durumegi over there! The old man's roaring voice was heard again. My liver turned cold with fear. It felt as if the old man were dragging his shoes and coming out toward this way. Terrified, I dashed out of that house and ran away. That night, after mother fell asleep, my sister quietly came over to me and said, My child, tell me exactly what you saw, please. As she said this, her face showed signs of agony and deep shame. She felt ashamed even asking her young brother about her lover. I kept my mouth shut and sat in silence. I could not bring myself to tell her that story. Why are you being stubborn again? Please hurry up and tell me. Seeing that you brought the letter back, did you fail to meet him? Or did you meet him but couldn't deliver it? Or did something happen? Stop burning my heart away and please tell me. Isn't this the plea of your pitiful sister? Her voice was sorrowful and plaintive. My heart felt as if it were being pierced, and tears overflowed. I was sorrowful that the sweet future my sister drew in her heart, who treated me so affectionately, had turned into mere water bubbles. And I trembled with rage that our pure sister had heard such filthy words as whatever, or keeping a wench from that old man. In a resentful tone, I told her what I had heard at that house. My sister, who had been listening absent-mindedly, collapsed powerlessly as soon as my words ended, and the tears that had been welling up since the beginning of my story streamed continuously down her burning cheeks. "Sister, sister," I cried, throwing myself into her arms and weeping. At that moment, someone lightly shook the gate and spoke in a trembling voice. "Miss S! Miss S! Are you asleep?" Hearing this voice, my sister stood up instantly. A lover's voice is easily heard even at such a time. Biting her lips tightly to hold back the tears that were about to burst forth, she hurried out. The sound of the gate opening was heard, and then her weeping voice cried, "Mr. K, you've come." I went out too. The two held each other, and a rain of tears fell violently. Mixing her words with sobs, my sister said, "I thought I would never see you again." Sighing deeply, he said, "It is all my fault. Because of me, you received a terrible scolding today, didn't you?" "How did you know?" My sister told him the story I had overheard when I went to his house with the letter. Then, in a weeping voice, she said, "Please come inside." "No, tomorrow, my grandfather intends to take me back by force. I am planning to run far, far away right now, so I came to say just a few words like this." As if doubting her own ears, my sister said, "What? Running far, far away? Abba, condoning your parents and abandoning your siblings, going far away. My life has become pitiful. Why should I make you, whose future is as vast as 9,000 lie, unhappy because of a wretched creature like me? Please forget me entirely and get married according to your parents' wishes. Become a devoted match to the one you marry until 100 years turn to dust. Have sons and daughters. Even if I give up everything of mine, if you can be happy, isn't that enough? Isn't your joy my joy? Isn't your happiness my happiness? Even while sighing and shedding tears, I will try to smile under the shadow of your happiness." Her lonely, beautiful face was mottled by the tears flowing continuously from her passionate eyes. Ah, making Miss S unhappy by my own hands while I alone seek happiness. Can there be happiness apart from love? When Miss S, who is to give me happiness, is floundering in a sea of tears, if I alone look down from the summit of happiness, could I smile? I cannot. Without Miss S, I cannot enjoy happiness alone. My misfortune was made by my own hands. However, that we have come to this pass today is neither your fault nor mine. It is that old, rotten custom that has made us like this. Nevertheless, because of me, I feel I have disturbed your mind, and I cannot tell you how sorry and heartbroken I am. Could I make you eternally unhappy on top of this? If you can be happy, I would not regret dying today. That is out of the question. The more I hear such words, the more heartbreaking it is. Since it is always the same thing, without speaking further, I must leave. Miss S, please be well." Wiping away his flowing tears, he turned around resolutely as if he had made up his mind to leave. "Mr. K," she called out in an anxiously trembling voice, but the rising sobs blocked her words. He looked back once more. "Miss S, please be well." Finishing his words, he turned his unyielding steps away, his mind remaining here, but his body growing distant over there. I felt as if someone were slicing my heart into pieces with a sharp knife. After that, no word was ever heard of where he had gone, and my sister began to fall ill from sorrow. As days and months passed, her illness grew progressively deeper. Her face, which used to be as reddish as a dew-drenched lotus flower, turned as haggard as a pear blossom reflected in a blue window glass. Her flesh, which used to have a healthy complexion like a ripening apple, withered away like a frost-bitten yellow leaf. Her dimmed eyes turned red from white tears. Then she became so terribly emaciated that it was unbearable to look at. She eventually became like a skeleton covered with a thin sheet of white paper and thoroughly sprayed with water. At last, when the ice of the Han River froze and snow accumulated on Namsan, my sister left this world where she had given him sighs and tears. Ah, love, O fire of love, because you seem gentle and warm, innocent youths treat you as a treasure and cherish you in their tender, soft hearts. Cruel as you are, you immediately set fire to that heart. A pillar of fire like a stone column rises without end. Even the jade-like skin is burned away, the crimson face is burned away, the harp-like heart is burned away, and the embroidered intestines are burned away. The candle that was lit in the room suddenly went out, and when I looked to see why, the wax had already completely burned away. The tears that drenched her cheeks suddenly dried up, and when I asked for the reason, her breath had already ceased. Like a candle that has burned down to its end, the tragic love of the young couple has quietly faded away. Though their story carries a profound sadness, I hope the depth of their devotion leaves a lingering warmth in your heart tonight. As the story concludes, I wish you a mind free of burdens and a heart full of peace. Thank you for joining me here at Slow Night Ancient Tales. Have a deeply restful and slow night. Good night.